President Bush defended himself today for honoring the Dalai Lama, the Buddhist religious leader receiving the Congressional Gold Medal from the president. China now opposes the honor because of the Lama's insistence for independence for Tibet.
I think it's a good thing for the president to do, to recognize those who Congress has honored. And I'm looking forward to going. I told the Chinese president, President Hu, that I was going to go to the ceremony. I brought it up. And I said, I'm going because I want to honor this man. I have consistently told the Chinese that religious freedom is in their nation's interest.
Well, is supporting the Dalai Lama worth straining relations with the economic powerhouse that China's become?
Well, here with us now, Mike Norman of the Economic Contrarian Update, and Jim Pettikoukas from Money and Business, and Peter Schiff, author of Crash Proof. So, Peter, to you first, what do you think? Is President Bush risking something with China by doing this?
Well, I doubt this specific incident is going to spark any kind of retaliation by China. But in general, in the broader scheme of things, we have to be very careful of China, because China is blowing all the air into our bubble economy. They're the ones that are supplying us with all these low-priced consumer goods that we buy, and they're loaning us all the money to pay for it. And, you know, we've got problems in the mortgage market. Imagine how much worse those problems would be if the Chinese weren't holding on to hundreds of billions of dollars worth of our mortgage-backed securities.
So, Mike, according to Peter, we couldn't survive without China.
Well, this is complete. Look, China can't survive without us. Let me put it very simply. China needs to produce 25 million jobs per year. We're dancing in the streets here in the United States if we produce 2 million jobs per year. They grow their economy precisely by selling into our market. By the way, I don't even know if Peter knows this. We import about $250 billion worth of goods from China every year. That's tiny compared to the overall U.S. economy, okay? The other thing he probably doesn't know is that over the past 4 years, we've grown our exports to China almost threefold. So they're going to be ended up to be a very strong consumer of our products.
But Jim, that doesn't mean we go cap in hand to the Chinese and do everything they say, like not meeting the Dalai Lama, right?
Absolutely. First of all, I think I could have done that Bill Murray monologue off the top of my head.
I love you, Jim, but you couldn't. You couldn't. Trust me. Don't go there. Go ahead. China.
Wouldn't have been as funny. But second of all, you know what? China does need us. The whole sort of raison d'etre for the Chinese government right now is economic growth, being able to deliver higher standards of living to their people. And if they can't do that, there's no reason for them to be in power. And for them to do that, they need the United States. They need our markets. They need to keep their economic growth at a blistering white-hot pace.
No, they don't. They do not. They have. There's a billion consumers in China. They're hardworking. They don't need us at all. They can produce. If they can produce, they can consume.
700 million of those
Chinese. They are not a consumer-driven economy yet.
No, but there's no such thing. Our consumer-driven economy, we're going to drive it into the ground. This is a giant, bubble. We've borrowed money from the rest of the world to consume. We're a mess. They don't need us.
No, that's absurd. Most countries in the developing world, such as China, have grown their economies because of the United States. Because of their ability to sell their products into the United States.
No, that's not.
700 million. Peter, wait a second. You had your chance to speak. 700 million people in China live in abject poverty, okay? So they need to change that equation. And President Bush, by the way, making this appearance with the Dalai Lama, sending a strong signal that the Chinese leaders themselves already know they have to narrow that disparity in income. They have to open up their society, which is basically run by a bunch of leaders in there and 1.3 billion people have no say in that society.
Let Peter respond.
Mike,
Peter.
The way to change that, the way for China to improve the lot of those 700 million people is to stop subsidizing our economy, but let the Chinese yuan rise. Hold on, Mike.
What China needs to do is
Jim, you're going to get the final word. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead, Jim.
What China needs to do is keep their economy moving, move those people into the middle class, and then they will demand more freedom and become a democratic capitalist country, which is what we want. It's our greatest foreign policy goal, just about.
That would be best for everybody. Let's leave it on that note. The American dream or American nightmare? Are you worried about making monthly payments in the wake of the mortgage meltdown?
Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson suggesting that homeowners seek counseling, but who should you turn to? Our Shivani Joshi is here with some answers.
Thanks, Dagan. Well, for hundreds of thousands of Americans out there, mortgage foreclosure isn't just a concern, it's a reality. In September alone of this year, there were over 224,000 foreclosures in the market. That's up almost 50% from last year. We're probably going to see a lot more of that. And if you are a homeowner and you are concerned you may not meet your mortgage payment, there are options out there. Foreclosure isn't the only answer. We're going to give you some tips on how to save your home. First up, don't ignore the problem. If your lender is trying to contact you via phone or mail, answer the phone, open your mail. Not answering your mail is not a good enough answer for not meeting your mortgage payments. 1 or 2 missed mortgage payments is a good enough reason for seizure, so pay attention. Secondly, read the fine print and understand your rights. We know that loan documents tend to be lengthy and convoluted and complicated, but you know what? Until you read your fine print, you're not going to know what rights you have and you're not going to know what help you have available to you. So watch the fine print there. Thirdly, use the assets that you do have. Now, you should talk to a financial planner first, but if you have a second home, a second car, even some jewelry you're not using, consider cashing that in to put down towards a missed mortgage payment. Fourthly, contact your lender as soon as you realize you have a problem. Now, for a lot of Americans out there, they don't know who their lender is. The person that shook their hand and said, "Congratulations, you have a new home," is probably not the person they're sending their mortgage checks to every month. So the way that you figure that out is actually look at your coupon book or your coupon payment book, or look at your statements, figure out who your lender is, and give them a call. They can be your biggest ally in case you are going to miss your payments. And lastly, if you can't work out a special payment arrangement with your lender, consider a mortgage counselor. There are lots of nonprofit organizations out there that are here to help you. You don't have to pay for them. There are a bunch of people out there and a bunch of services out there that are charging big fees to help you. You don't need to. You can actually get it for free. Go to www.hud, that's HUD.gov, and you can figure out some of the resources you have available. So being proactive is the key here, not reactive, and you can make sure to save your home. Back to you.
All right, Shivani, thanks very much. So is it a good idea, a mortgage shrink? Can you say that? No, mortgage counselor, let's put it that way, because they really can help.
That's right. Well, and back with us to debate that, Mike Norman, Jim Pettikalkas, and Peter Schiff. So, Mike, to you first. Good idea. If you save your home, it helps the lender, too.
Yeah, and the environment right now, Dagan, I think lenders want to help. You know, there's a lot of attention on this problem now coming down from, from the president on down. So I think they're more amenable, they're more open to try to help out. If it's your primary residence, yeah, I think you should try to hang on to it. For somebody who got into a housing deal as a speculation and is trying to hold on, and they're really at risk there, I think probably let it go.
Peter, what do you think?
Peter.
Yeah, well, in many cases, these homes are not worth holding on to. I mean, what's the point of struggling to hold on to an overpriced house? I mean, there are plenty of vacant houses around that you can move into and rent and have a payment you can afford. People overpaid for houses. The prices were in the stratosphere for the past few years. They're going a lot lower. It certainly doesn't make any sense to sink more money into a house when you're just going to lose it. So I think the borrowers are in the driver's seat because they can walk away. It's the lenders who are going to get stuck with all this paper.
Yeah, but Jim, these debts don't just go away. You can't just walk away. That hangs with you, right?
No, I mean, if you're actually concerned about having some, like, a credit history,
I wasn't just on the air.
A car, anything in the future. Well, yeah, you should definitely try to work things out. And this really goes to the point that when people talk about all these potential foreclosures and people losing their home, there's going to be a certain percentage, maybe a high percentage of people who are going to be able to work out these loans and stay in their houses. So the housing crisis may not be quite as bad as some people fear.
Don't compound a bad. An error in judgment with another error in judgment,
which would be
right?
what?
Selling when prices have already come down, if you can. I don't agree with Peter, again, because I think selling now might be at a very bad
just because
point.
you don't like agreeing with Peter.
I don't like agreeing with Peter. Let's be honest about it over here. But I don't think you should compound an error in judgment with another error in judgment. Look,
Mike,
on one point, you're right. If you can't hold on to it, you got to get out. But if it's possible to work it out, David, if it's possible to work it out, then work it out.
Peter, quickly.
prices are just starting to fall. They have a long way to go. Remember, Mike, back in December of last year, December of '97, when I predicted all the problems we're having right now in the housing market and the lending.
The oracle of what now? I forgot. The oracle of what?
Let me finish. Mike, let me finish. Mike, you were laughing at me when I was talking about lax lending standards. Hold on. You confidently predicted that housing prices would go up 10% this year.
You know, that's my job. I predict a lot of things.
Well,
yeah, most of them don't happen.
Have to end the discussion because we've run out of time.
Mike,
literally.
Most of your predictions don't come true. Mine do.
Thanks, guys, for watching the markets at this hour. Gotta go.
We got a leader in Iran who has announced that he wants to destroy Israel. So I've told people that if you're interested in avoiding World War III, it seems like you ought to be interested in preventing them from having the knowledge necessary to make a nuclear weapon.
Well, there you go. I was wondering why this segment was called World War III. That's why. The president said it. Tough talk from the president today, bringing up the possibility of World War III in connection with Iran.
The possibility could roil markets, but would a war footing actually benefit our economy? Well, Mike Norman, Charles Massimo, Peter Schiff, all back with us now to discuss that. Mike, you think that the war footing would actually be a good thing for us here?
A war, if what you mean by a war footing is a preparation for an attack on Iran, look, I think we got to take these guys out. We can't allow them, as the president has said over and over and over again, we can't allow them to have nukes. If we do, the consequences are much more destructive and terrible than anything that might beset the economy from as a result of this war footing. There's another thing I want to say here, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, and I am not a war mongerer, but war spending increases it's spending which ends up increasing the size of our economy, whether you like to hear that or not.
Yeah,
I mean, it helps our industrial military base.
So, Mike, we're spending about, I believe it's $626 billion on military expendendures, $323 billion on health care. So, yeah, we could be spending money. I mean, it's $626 billion.
About nickels and dimes here.
Nickels and dimes.
About the
look at the healthcare system right now.
A country like Iran, a state sponsor of terrorism that has a nuclear weapon.
We have with us another guest who I'm sure agrees with everything that Mike Norman says. Peter, what do you think? Peter Schiff?
I think the president is exaggerating the threats posed by a Middle East nation. You know, even if Iran were to develop a nuclear weapon, I don't think it necessarily follows that we're going to have World War III. I mean, how many nuclear missiles did the Soviet Union have pointed all over the world, and we managed to avoid World War III? But to think that a war that's spending money on bombs helps an economy, all you're doing is diverting resources that could have been used for things that we actually like, and you're using them to fight a war. It doesn't help the economy.
You mean protecting our nation? Fighting a war to protect our nation does not help our economy.
Mike, will you let me finish? Mike, will you let me finish a point?
Is not an investment that we need to make.
Mike, will you let me finish a point?
Okay, hold on. Go ahead, Peter.
Look, certainly spending money on a war might be necessary, just like putting burglar alarms on your house is necessary, but it doesn't necessarily improve your standard of living. You'd rather spend the money on other things. And, you know, we're borrowing the money to fight these wars. We have to pay the world back. We're borrowing trillions of dollars to fight these wars.
All right, well, Peter, I want to ask Charles this. I mean, you have to admit, Ahmadinejad is pretty off his rocker. I mean, he said some pretty crazy things. I mean, you cannot put it past this guy that he would not develop a nuclear weapon. I mean, he's a threat. He is a potential threat to this country.
I agree, and I think both, and I hate to be in between Mike and Peter. It's probably a very vulnerable spot to be in between. But the point is, again, if we're spending so much money, how are we repaying it? We're repaying it through increase in taxes and increased debt. Absolutely.
Taxes have gone down.
Where are we going to pay for this? It's going to come from the taxes.
Taxes have gone down. Economic growth has gone up. Revenues have come into the Treasury.
Mike,
if it wasn't for this little
inflation, we haven't had economic growth. We've had inflation. That's all we've had.
We have not. Those statistics, sir, are adjusted. Those GDP statistics are adjusted for inflation. You got to go back and study economics 101 because obviously you don't know what you're talking about.
Mike,
those numbers are adjusted for inflation.
I know enough to have made accurate forecasts on the markets over the years, unlike you.
Well, you made one forecast which never came true, was that the American economy was in demise, and it's not. We've added trillions and trillions of dollars of wealth ever since you've been saying that for 6 or 7 years.
Take a breath, Mike. Go ahead, Peter, quickly.
Mike, the government is telling us that over the last year, the price of food is only up by 4.5%.
All right, so
the price of energy is only up by 5%.
Okay.
Anybody who goes to the supermarket or fills up his car with gas knows that's nonsense.
Now you're going to fall back on, I don't believe the
Charles,
numbers.
like it or not, you're in the middle here. Final word. Go ahead.
Unfortunately, I think I have to massage Mike and calm him down a little bit.
I
don't want to see that, but final word, quickly.
No, again, I think there's other avenues. There's other avenues that I think we need to be spending money on. It can't be so much of the money's going towards war when we have health care.
Well, I'm glad we left it all at a laugh, folks. We got to leave now.